you haven't been to the redwoods, I've been here almost 8 years, and this is my first trip. I know, shame on me. But, wow, you talk about an awesome sight. However, what we're going to talk about this morning is fascinating in spite of what I saw this weekend. In fact, maybe I should say as a result of what I saw this weekend. As we were walking through this little tour, we paid $14 a person, I think it was, to go, and we went on this trail, and we took the gondola up to the top of the trees, and they got these, on the way back, they got all these neat pictures and, the little comment signs. One of the comments mentioned the weakness of the redwood. Now, on the way to the redwoods, I told Kristen, I said, I thought of a great idea for a trivia game. It'll be just mindless trivia that most people don't know the answer to. And I said, we'll ask questions. How tall is the tallest redwood on record right now? So I'm like, maybe 100, 150 feet. Kristen says, how long was a football field? I said, really? You think it's that long? Football field? Well, she would have won. Because the longest, or tallest, I guess you'd say, redwood on file right now is 369.5 feet. That's longer than a football field. Now, in order to do that, one of the comments I made on our walk was, can you imagine the root system to hold up a tree that massive? When I did a little research, I found out that the weight of a 300 plus foot tree isn't in the thousands, but in the millions of pounds. Yeah. So again, you would think, boy, can you imagine the root system that has to be digging down deep into the soil to hold up a tree that big? Ironically, the root system is the weakness of the redwood. They don't go deep. They actually go fairly shallow, and they're susceptible to something as simple as people walking on them. A little disease in the dirt can kill a redwood fast. So here, I just pictured the imagery. These trees, they're saying some they think are 2,000 years old. Right? They got this, they grow forever, and yet, they're weak as can be at the root. That's why as you walk through the redwoods, if you ever do it, we always look at the ones standing up, but notice how many redwoods are actually falling down. Big ones. That one's taller than you can stand. 9 foot high. And yet there they are laying down, dead at the root. Boy, I immediately thought, that'll preach. I mean, on the outside, we look all big and strong and ready to take on the world, but if our root system is weak, what good of it? We might walk around, talk a great game, sounding all confident in our Christianity, but if our root system is weak, what happens when the opposition shows up? What happens when the stresses kick in? I got a buddy of mine who's a preacher, and I love the guy. He's got a great personality, very enthusiastic, until he deals with the church. As soon as pressure comes up, he panics, he freaks out, he breaks. And you're sitting there going, man, you're a preacher, you should have more confidence in that. But you start realizing, somewhere he's got weak roots. He needs to figure this out if he wants longevity. In fact, it seems to be a problem with preachers. I'll pick on preachers because I are one. 75% of ministers that enter the ministry will quit within the first 5 years, never to return. What's that tell you about the root system? So here I'm looking at these massive trees, and we're just blown away by how tall and wide and huge they are, and then you realize they can't handle stress. And it seems weird because they're so huge. But when you think about it, we don't normally say strong as a redwood. We say strong as an oak. Because an oak has a deep, heavy root system. It can weather the storm. It can endure the opposition. And so we want to be that oak that can handle anything. I was thinking about this in terms of, okay, it will preach, but how? I thought about King Saul. And the thing about King Saul is when Saul comes on and the people are going up and they're going, we want a king like everybody else. Right? It stirs up some trouble and all of that. So when they start looking and finally God says, you know what? Give them a king. This is what Scripture says about Saul. And he had a choice and a handsome son whose name was Saul. There was not a more handsome person than he among the children of Israel. From his shoulders upward, he was taller than any of the people. David was a little... sorry. So here's Saul, right? They want a king, so who do they pick? Let's find the tallest, most best-looking man we can. You all got 1 out of 2. I'm not the tallest, but I'm not. Hey, nobody asked you. They said, let's get the guy that looks like a king. He'll make everybody jealous because he's so big and tall and fine looking. Boy, that's a king. What kind of king was Saul? Yeah. Boy, it doesn't take long at all before that great looking tall king starts messing up like crazy. So then I went to David, and this is what it says about David. 1 Samuel 16, 11 to 12. The first one you probably saw up there was 1 Samuel 9, 2. But 1 Samuel 16, 11 to 12, it says, and Samuel said to Jesse, are all the young men here? Then he said, there remains yet the youngest, and there he is, keeping the sheep. And Samuel said to Jesse, send and bring him, for we will not sit down till he comes here. So he sent him and brought him in. Now he was ruddy with the bright eyes and good looking. And the Lord said, arise, anoint him, for this is the one. Now David is also a good looking man, or young man we're going to call him, because all of his older brothers you would think would be more qualified. In fact, when we pick up David a little bit later, he's the errand boy, right? He's the one that couldn't go off to war because he's the kid of the group, and he had to stay home and take care of the flocks while the real men of the family went off to war. So here you have Saul, taller than everybody else by head and shoulders, better looking than anybody else, looks like the perfect king, and then you got the little shepherd boy. From the way we look at things, who would we pick? Not knowing what we know. You think anybody in here would have picked David first? Or would we have wanted Saul to be king too? See, this image that we have here, it looks great. Big, tall, towering over everything. That's the one we want to follow. But only David is called a man after God's own heart. See, the way we look at things, we only look above the ground, and realistically we should be looking deeper. It's biblical, though. It'll preach because it's in the Bible. There's actually an entire line of scriptures that builds up the idea of our root system. If you go to 2 Kings 19:30, it says, and the remnant who have escaped to the house of Judah shall again take root downward and bear fruit upward. Isaiah 11:10, and in that day there shall be a root of Jesse, who shall stand as a banner to the people, for the Gentiles shall seek him, and his resting place shall be glorious. New Testament, Romans 11. For if the first fruit is holy, the lump is also holy, and if the root is holy, so are the branches. And if some of the branches were broken off, and you, being a wild olive tree, were grafted in among them, and with them became a partaker of the root and the fatness of the olive tree, do not boast against the branches. But if you do boast, remember that you do not support the root, but the root supports you. And then in Revelation 5:5 it says, but one of the elders said to me, do not weep, behold, the Lion of the tribe of Judah, the root of David, has prevailed to open the scroll and to loose its 7 seals. See, we've been prepared for this idea of a good, firm root system. Being that most of us aren't Jews in here, maybe none of us, we've been told that we've been grafted in to Christ. Into His stability, right? His kinghood. So here we are, the chance to be part of that tree. Well, I've been talking a lot lately about science. And see, that's the thing with people in science. They love to see science. It has to make sense according to science. And you've heard me say it. I love science. I do. It's fascinating. It's great. It's very entertaining. But the problem is, then you will have somebody come out, say, I got this theory I'm working on, and this is what everything in the world I think came from. Boom! A Big Bang! And the more dramatic the theory gets, right? The more it grows and blossoms into this, hey, we ought to teach this in our school systems. Yeah, let's teach science. Even though it starts off where everything has to be verified and proven. No, never mind. It's such a grand tale. Let's just tell the whole thing. And now it's filled with speculation. And when you stand back, everybody looks at this giant tree and they go, man, it's magnificent. Oh, that's awesome. Oh, look how cool that is. And if some of you remember me mentioning this over the last couple of weeks. And then one of their scientists gets up and says, oh, by the way, everything we know about that Big Bang, we found out conflicts with physics. And yet they go, yeah, but it's such a big, awesome tree, we're going to just keep believing in it anyway. But see, that tree's going to fall. And where would we be if that's all we believed in? Where would we be if our root system was founded in a tree that is destined to fall? One of the things we heard this week was that you've probably seen the pictures of a car driving through one of the redwoods. One of them has fallen. My sister said, man, you think something that big, how could you miss it? I said, they didn't. They ran right into it. You go, oh, God. So I looked up an article and I thought, what happens to a giant redwood when they carve out the middle of it? And this one scientist posted, he said that the problem with the redwood is, as we've already discovered, their roots are way too weak. And when you cut a giant hole in the middle of it, it disperses that 1,000,000 plus 2 million pounds of weight onto those little outside weak roots, and that tree will die. He said it's not a matter of if, it's a matter of when. And he said, and I don't anticipate to be a long-term thing. Those trees will die. So take that back to my quick analogy with science. See, the reality is when somebody alters, I'll call it altered science, I guess, but when somebody takes this idea that's not founded in Christ, it has no stability under God. But they build it up into this massive thing, and then they start drilling holes in it. Guess what eventually will happen to them? It's going to die. That's what's going to happen. That's why if you look at the other side, they keep coming to the church and they keep trying to drill holes into our Bible. They want to find fault with it. Oh, we think that this is an error. We're going, no, try again. But over here, we think this is a mistake. No, try again. Because they realize their tree is coming down. It's inevitable. But ours has a great root system. And it's going to last forever. No matter what they try, no matter how hard they make the effort, it will not happen. In Isaiah 40:22-24, it says, it is he who sits above the circle of the earth, and its inhabitants are like grasshoppers, who stretch out the heavens like a curtain and spreads them out like a tent to dwell in. He brings the princes to nothing. He makes the judges of the earth useless. Scarcely shall they be planted. Scarcely shall they be sown. Scarcely shall their stock take root in the earth. Then he will also blow on them, and they will wither in the whirlwind, will take them away like stubble. Well, see, one of the things that is inevitable with trees is it seems sooner or later we see them falling. And that's why I believe the imagery is here. We get told about what happens to all of the bad trees? They become stubble. They get burned up. We'll see it, and that's the thing about the root of Jesse. That's the thing about Christ is our root system. It's the one tree that doesn't get burned up. It's the one that won't rot away. It's the one that will not fall. Everything else, and you'll see it throughout the Scriptures, Jeremiah 1, 9 through 10. Then the Lord put forth His hand and touched my mouth, and the Lord said to me, Behold, I have put my words in your mouth. See, I have this day set you over the nations and over the kingdoms, to root out and to pull down, to destroy and to throw down, to build and to plant. Malachi 4:1, For behold, the day is coming, burning like an oven, and all the proud, yes, all who do wickedly will be stubble, and the day which is coming shall burn them up, says the Lord of hosts, that will leave them neither root nor branch. And then Matthew 23, verse 25, it says, Woe to you, scribes and Pharisees, hypocrites! For you cleanse the outside of the cup and dish, but inside they are full of extortion and self-indulgence. Blind Pharisee, first cleanse the inside of the cup and dish, that the outside of them may be clean also. Woe to you, scribes and Pharisees, hypocrites, for you are all like whitewashed tombs, which indeed appear beautiful outwardly, but inside are full of dead men's bones and uncleanliness. Even so, you also outwardly appear righteous to men, but inside you are full of hypocrisy and lawlessness. Now that last one doesn't seem to talk about trees much, does it? But it's the reality of Christianity, of what you've built it upon. See, there's a lot of people out there that I'm not sure what they're building their faith on, but I am sure that it's not on Jesus Christ. They're trusting in everything but God Himself. They build up these things that they've decided make sense, or they're philosophically sound, or they're scientifically reasonable. But the problem is God gets left out of the equation. So what happens to us as Christians if we allow somebody to come in and pervert the gospel? What happens if we stop reading our Bible and we start listening to the world, and then all the bad stuff starts happening? See, we see Jesus that comes at the Pharisees hard because these are supposed to be the holy guys. These are the ones supposed to know the law, and these are the ones that should have recognized the Messiah when He walked up. But instead they've gotten so good at looking good, but having a terrible root system. How many of us here today, don't raise your hand, but are sitting there suffering from the same problem? We want everybody to see us as a good Christian, but tell you the truth, at the root system, we are hurting. We're struggling. One person can come up and just question something we said or did, and all of a sudden we question our relationship with God. What's up with that? I mean, if we are grafted into the only tree that will not fail, shouldn't we be able to have a little confidence in our branches? Should we be able to trust in the ministry that we're part of? See, the question is, if we don't have that confidence, maybe it's because we know we're listening to stuff we shouldn't be listening to. Or we're following somebody we shouldn't be following. Or maybe we're just not studying our Bible enough to know who we are grafted into. Jesus warns, and even now the axe is laid to the root of the tree. Therefore, every tree which does not bear good fruit is cut down and thrown into the fire. I don't want to be one of those. I don't want them to look at me and see a branch and say, well, there's no fruit, let's break that off, burn it, so there's something good and productive can grow there. Anybody ever fallen out of a tree? I'm going to give you a real weird analogy and story at the same time, if you'll look. Is it ever a good thing to fall out of a tree? You are mistaken. You are. See, when I was a high school kid, I climbed anything that was in front of me. Fearless or stupid, whichever one you want to call it. But I would climb without thinking, and we had this big fruit tree in the backyard, and it was tall. So I went up and I climbed and I climbed and I climbed, and I got to the very top, and I waved over the top of the leaves. Wasn't anybody there, but I was waving just to prove that I did. Started climbing back down, and I found a hornet's nest. Now, let me just say my climbing abilities disappeared, but I mastered my falling abilities. I jumped back, trying to land on a branch. Instead of hitting the branch on my feet, I hit it with my back, and then I literally toppled from branch to branch all the way down to the ground. Cool. Now, I said this was a good thing, though, because it was a really tall tree, and every branch I hit held securely. Solid. So by the time I hit the last branch, which was only a few feet from the ground, I just kind of landed in the dirt and the grass. And though I had a few scratches and a few bruises, I lived. See? Falling out of that tree, my point being this way. Every branch was solid that I hit. None broke, none let me fall too far. I fell out of another tree one time. Luckily I didn't break anything, but the branch I was grabbing snapped off in my hand, and I fell a lot farther than I hurt. See, we don't want weak branches. I might have hurt myself on the way down to the other, but I had no broken bones. I needed no stitches. Like I said, a few marks. But the reality was, it was the solidness of that tree that got me to the ground safely. Think about it. If it would have been a flimsy tree that broke every branch, who knows what might have happened to me? We're all going to fall. We're all going to have problems. We're going to have struggles. But don't we want to be part of the big, sturdy tree that can take it? When we look at who we are today, everything in the world is trying to shake our faith in God. Trying to make us to doubt ourselves. And yet here's this reassurance that we are part of the tree that won't fall. We have a root system that runs deep. And we have been grafted in by God Himself. Matthew 13, 4-9, it says, and as he sowed, some seed fell by the wayside, and the birds came and devoured them. Some fell on stony places where they did not have much earth, and they immediately sprang up because they had no depth of earth. But when the sun was up, they were scorched, and because they had no root, they withered away. And some fell on thorns, and the thorns sprang up and choked them. But the others fell on good ground and yielded a crop, some 100-fold, some 60, some 30. He who has ears to hear, let him hear. Now jump to Proverbs 12:3. It said, a man is not established by wickedness, but the root of the righteous cannot be moved. I thought about those two together, and the imagery is wonderful. See, even though we see one thing where, we're spreading seed and we're hoping something will sprout up and all this, when we really look at our faith, it is not tied to a corn stalk. It's tied to something deeper, stronger, sturdier. And these people that go out and they chase every whim that can be there. We were talking about diets this week. I don't know why. But diets. And I said the problem I have with diets is no matter what diet you're on, somebody will tell you something in that diet will kill you. Am I right? I can watch my sodium, and then somebody will tell me I can die from not having enough sodium. I can watch my fats, and somebody will tell me if I don't eat fat, then it'll kill me. Right? I said, tell you the truth, and you've heard me say this, I know some, 100% of water drinkers will die. So stay away from that water, everybody. 100% of air breathers will die. Everybody hold your breath, quick. The one truth that is there is that there is one tree that will not die. We can trust it. Plan on it. Proverbs 12:12 says, the fruit covet the patch of evil men, but the root of the righteous yields fruit. 2 Corinthians 10:7 says, do you look at things according to the outward appearance? If anyone is convinced in himself that he is Christ, let him again consider this in himself, that just as he is Christ, even so we are Christ. And we talked about communion this morning. We're not just with Christ. We are one with Christ. We have been united to Christ. We are His. He is ours. We are there together when Jesus prays in John 17. Let them be one in me as I am in you. Connected to God the Father through the Son. And that's empowering. It's comforting knowing that we're part of that tree. The one that won't fall. The one we don't have to worry about getting cut down. John 15:1 and 2 says, I am the true vine, and my Father is the vine dresser. Every branch in me that does not bear fruit, He takes away, and every branch that bears fruit, He prunes that it may bear more fruit. We're part of that tree. Jesus looking after us, providing for us, watching over us, knowing that we have a home in heaven. What tree are you part of? Who are you looking to for comfort and surety? See, the world will send us everywhere. Tell us have confidence in the wrong things. We were talking about the book of Galatians not too long ago. I'm full going, boy, you foolish people. Why are you listening to somebody telling you something other than what you've already been taught? Why would we listen to something other than this? This is our tree. Part of the tree of life we're working on, right? We want to be part of it forever. So don't try and be like the redwood. Be like the oak. Count on the roots that you're part of. Grow up, bear fruit, and show God that we can't wait to see Him again. You're subject to an invitation this morning. Maybe you haven't devoted your life to Christ right now, and if that's the case, you're not part of that tree, and you don't have that root system. And you should be worried. It's time to commit. What are you waiting for? At the same time, if you have been baptized, you are a child of God, but you're struggling, you need some help, you need some encouragement, let us help you with that too. This is all the tree of God. We're in it together. Let us encourage you, pray for you. If you'd like to be baptized this morning, or you need prayer, we invite you.